Hey guys, I hope y'all are having a great day today. So I'm going to be showing y'all my top 3 favorite makeup products in every category of my makeup routine. For a lot of these categories, they are products that I picked that I think are the best that I have tried for people who have maturing skin or people who might be just a little more mindful of premature aging. And then there's a couple of categories where I really don't think it makes a difference if you think you have maturing skin or not. So I'm just going to share with y'all my favorite products in those categories. So before we get started, if you're here for the first time, hello and welcome, and thank you so much for stopping by. My name is SonyaNicole and I post makeup videos here, including some content for us 40 and over makeup lovers, aka the Grown and Gorgeous crew. And for those of you who are already subscribed to the channel, you will see going forward that a lot more of my content is going to start being geared toward the 40 and over crew. But if you're not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing while you're here today. I would really appreciate your support, and of course I would love to have you join the channel. Okay y'all, let's jump right into it. Okay, so if you are new here, I don't wear foundation primer, so we're going to jump right into foundations, and I did pick 3 that I think are the best out of the ones that I have tried for maturing skin. So I'm going to start off with the one that I'm wearing today. This is the Pat McGrath foundation. So I initially tried this out when it first came out, but I didn't wear it too much because I got the wrong shade, and I got it from the influencer program, so I wasn't able to exchange it or return it. So I just kept that shade, but I haven't really been able to use it. I kind of recently got this one, which is the shade MD22. So I would say over the past maybe like 2-3 weeks or so, every time that I've done my makeup, I've been reaching for this one because I just kind of forgot how much I really like this foundation. The one that I got initially, even though it was a little too dark for me, I did wear it a handful of times when I first got it because I just love the way that this foundation wears on my face. And then I just kind of got away from it because it wasn't really the right shade. So this is kind of like one that I forgot about and kind of recently started loving again, and I put it in my top 3 because when I think about foundations for maturing skin or like trying to prevent like premature aging, I think about not putting a whole lot of product and just packing product onto our face. And this is one of those foundations that's like really nice and thin. It's nice and hydrating, but it gives you a really good amount of coverage for how thin it is. So if you want anything from like medium to full coverage, you can use this without having to put too much on. Now I will say for oily skin, because that's my skin type, it's not the longest lasting foundation that I've tried. I usually have to repowder this after like 4 or 5 hours, but I think it's so pretty on the skin that it is worth trying out. So this is my first one in the foundation category. My second one is also relatively new to my collection. This is the Flawless IRL Skin Perfecting Foundation by Uoma by Sharon C. So just in case you're not familiar with this one, you may have heard of Uoma Beauty. Uoma Beauty is on uomabeauty.com and also at Ulta. And then Uoma by Sharon C is kind of like the drugstore or less expensive version of Uoma Beauty. So this one is also on their website, but it's also at Walmart. You won't be able to find this in any other store except for Walmart. So like I said, this one is relatively new to me, but this is pretty much the same as the Pat McGrath foundation in that it's one of those foundations where you can build this one all the way up from like light to full. That's one of the main reasons that I like this, because I love foundations that can be built up. So anywhere from light to full, this will give you the coverage that you're looking for. But even with full coverage, you don't have to put a whole lot on to get it all the way up to full. So if you have like a medium coverage with this foundation, just a little tiny drop more will just give you a whole lot more coverage, and it's a really good long lasting foundation too. I think that this one was able to get me to like 8 hours before I felt like I had to blot and repowder. So not only is this one pretty inexpensive, especially compared to the Pat McGrath one, but it's long lasting and it's nice and hydrating, and it'll give you a good amount of coverage without you having to pack so much of it on your face. And then for those of us who like powder foundations, now a lot of people feel like, you know, when you have older skin, you might not be able to wear powder foundation, and you definitely can. But just like with the liquid ones, when it comes to a powder foundation for maturing skin, I like to look for ones that will give you good coverage with being able to use less product. So one of my favorite ones is, I would say this is my favorite powder foundation, although I haven't tried like 100 different ones, but I've tried quite a few, and my favorite one is from Fenty Beauty. This one, although it's a powder consistency, it has like a really nice creamy formula and it blends into your skin really easily. Because it's a powder, it's obviously going to give you more of a matte finish, but it's still going to give you like a natural looking matte finish, and it's not going to dry your face out. And again, just like with the other two liquid foundations that we talked about, this one I would consider buildable. I feel like you can build this one up from like a medium to a full coverage, and you can also do like a light coverage with this too, depending on how you apply it, because for a while when I first got this foundation, I was actually using it as a setting powder on top of other liquid foundations. So as long as you use like a fluffy like a looser brush to apply this, you can also apply it that way. So I think it's very versatile, but again, it's one of those products that will give you nice coverage without you having to put a whole lot of it on. So those are my 3 favorite foundations for people with maturing skin, and then we're going to stick with that maturing skin theme as we go into our concealers. So if you're like me and you feel like you need a whole lot of coverage on your under eye area, if you have not yet, you definitely need to try the Kevyn Aucoin Sensual Skin Enhancer. This is like the most like maximum coverage concealer I know of. If you know of anything that gives you more coverage than this, let me know in the comments, because I would be really interested. But I haven't tried like every concealer in the world, but this one is definitely the one with the most coverage. I would consider this one to be like a color correcting concealer. I think all of the shades in this line have more of like a color correcting aspect to it. So this one is the shade SX13. I think this comes in 15 shades. So I'm hoping y'all can tell by the color in here that it has almost like a peachy consistency to it. Actually, let me just do a little swatch for y'all. So I think you can tell kind of like with that swatch that it has almost like a dark peachy consistency to it. So this one is really good for the under eye area because it'll cancel out some darkness. It'll give you some color correction, but it'll also give you a really good full coverage under your eye. This little pot of concealer costs $48, but I'm telling you, this thing will last a lifetime. Like, I feel like I have used this a million times. I don't use it every time I do my my makeup, but I've used this a lot, and I feel like I kind of just like tap the surface of it. So yes, it is kind of expensive, but it's definitely worth it because this one will last you a very long time, and I don't think you'll be able to find anything out there that's going to give you more coverage than this one. So my next favorite concealer, this one you guys never see me use in videos because I don't think I have a shade in here. So sometimes I do like to recommend products to y'all that even I can't use, but it's more so because I can't find a shade. But I think if you can find a shade, it is one that's worth trying out. So this one is the Urban Decay Naked Skin Weightless Complete Coverage Concealer, and I think the name of this really describes exactly what it is. It's very full coverage, but it's also very weightless. So again, when we think about products that we're putting on skin and we want to prevent like premature aging, or maybe we already see some signs of aging and we just want to try to combat that, I like to think again of products that will give us a good amount of coverage with using less product, and this is definitely one that does that. I think kind of like with the Kevyn Aucoin concealer, these have more of like a color correcting aspect to it. I feel like if you're looking for something that's going to help you cancel out darkness and cancel out discoloration rather, and give you some coverage, this is a really good one. This one is in the shade Medium Neutral. I used to have this in a darker shade, but I must have used it all up. I used to use that one as a color corrector back in the day. I got this one just to try it, hoping that it would work for me, but it's just too much of a neutral shade. So I usually use like cool undertone products. Usually neutral just doesn't work for me. So unfortunately, I haven't gotten too much use out of this one. But again, if you think you can find a shade in this, I think it's definitely worth trying out. And then my last one, this concealer, you guys see me use this all the time. This is the Born This Way, the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer, and is considered a super coverage concealer. So I definitely would consider this full coverage. I wouldn't say that this is like the most, like the maximum coverage that I have ever tried, because it's definitely not as much coverage as the Kevyn Aucoin one. I would say comparing this to Urban Decay, it's probably like the same amount of coverage that you get, but this one I would definitely consider full coverage. What I love about this one is it's very hydrating, very creamy, and even though it's so creamy, when you blend it out, it really stays in place, especially when you set it. So if you feel like you have dry under eyes, this is a really good product to give you some coverage, but also give you some hydration in that area. So this is definitely one of my most used and my most repurchased products ever. Not just in concealer, but in makeup in general. I have purchased so many of these because I use them up like crazy. Okay, so now we're gonna get into setting powders. So I know a lot of people love using loose powders, and I definitely have some loose powders that I really like, but I haven't used a loose powder in a very long time because I really prefer pressed powders, especially for people with maturing skin. Pressed powders will just sit on your skin a lot better than a loose powder, because loose powders are meant to be like really finely milled to the point where they might kind of like sink into like any fine lines or wrinkles that you have on your face, whereas a pressed powder, because it's not as finely milled as a loose one, it'll just kind of like sit over the surface of your skin, and it'll give you kind of like a smooth surface over things like fine lines and wrinkles. So I much rather prefer using pressed powders on my face as opposed to loose ones. There's definitely a lot of loose powders out there that are really nice, but like I said, I just prefer pressed ones. So I'm going to share with you 3 of my favorite pressed powders. So I think my favorite overall, and this is the one that y'all see me use pretty much every time I'm testing out a foundation, this is the Sephora Microsmooth powder. Now this one is meant to be a powder foundation. It's a baked powder foundation. This one is in the shade Tan. Oh, and they just recently they added more shades to this. They added a lot more darker shades to this, but this one is the shade Tan. So this is a pressed powder, a baked powder foundation, but the reason I like using it as a setting powder is because I feel like it really doesn't give you a whole lot of coverage for a powder foundation. Like when you compare it to something like the Fenty one, with this one I just don't think that you get as much coverage from it, or you're gonna have to put a ton of it on to get like full coverage from this. But I think it's perfect for setting liquid foundations. Number one is just pressed, so like I said, I like it better because it's pressed, but also it has like a really smooth, fine, like silky consistency to it also. So another favorite of mine, and this one is actually relatively new. I just tried it for the first time maybe like a couple months ago, but this one is the Pat McGrath. This is called the Blurring Under Eye Powder. So these are meant to be under eye powders, and I like using them for both the under eye and all over the face. Pat McGrath does have loose powders, but I didn't try those because they didn't have a shade that I thought that I would like. This one I think would work, well, it does work for all over my face. So again, I like this one because it's pressed, and this powder is like super silky. I feel like this is probably the silkiest powder that I have tried, I want to say, but it's like really silky and it blends right into the skin, and it just gives you like that smooth layer, like kind of like that blurred finish all over your face. For those of you who think you would prefer a matte finish to your look, this one is also relatively new to me, but I think it's a really good product. This is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop Mattifying Powder. So this one, I'm gonna say out of the 3 that I'm talking about today, although I think it's one of my favorites, I will say I think it's like my least favorite out of the 3, but it's still one of my favorites, like overall, if that makes sense. This one you can put on a very little bit of the powder on your face, and it'll really like blur things out, it'll smooth things out, and it'll give you like a really nice natural matte finish. It won't make you look like super powdery, super dry. It's just really good at mattifying and blurring the skin. I think one of the best things about this product is the blurring effect. Like it really does like blur imperfections on your face. But just like with all of the other complexion products that we're talking about today, you can put very little of this on and get like a nice mattifying, blurring look. It will add just a little bit of coverage on top of your liquid foundation, but not a whole lot. Like I wouldn't try to use this as like a powder foundation because I just don't think it's going to give you that much coverage, but it works really well as a mattifying setting powder on top of liquid foundation. Okay, so the next category is eyeshadow primer, and I do feel like people who have maturing skin, we do need to be mindful of the skin around our eyes because it is more sensitive than other areas of our face. But I feel like for the most part, I'm not really picking products that I think are specific toward maturing skin. These are just like my favorites like overall. So lately I have been using a concealer. It's not meant to be an eyeshadow primer, but that's what I've been using it as, and I've been really enjoying it. This is the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. So I actually used to use this back in the day as an under eye concealer, and I do really like it, but I kind of like got away from it because it has a matte finish to it. And for me, like, even though it has a matte finish, it wasn't really drying on my under eye, but I just prefer concealers that have more of like a hydrating finish. But because this does have a matte finish, I think it makes for a really good eyeshadow primer. I love using products that have matte finishes for the eyeshadow because my eyelids get really oily, so I like using things that will help to combat this. So this one blends out really nicely, and it helps your eyeshadow kind of like stick as what an eyeshadow primer would do. But like I said, it's not an eyeshadow primer, it is a concealer, but for me it works really well as a primer, and I use the shade Chestnut in this concealer. So next one is the e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer. So obviously this one was meant to be an eye primer, but just like with the NARS one, this one has like a nice tacky consistency to it, and it just kind of feels like it would be something that other products would stick to really nicely. So when I say it has like a tacky consistency, this one I think is in the shade Rose. Yes, this one is in the shade Rose. So when I say tacky, it doesn't feel drying at all, but it just really feels like if you put something else on top of it, it's just going to really help to have that other product stick to this really nicely. So it's tacky, but it's definitely not drying. And my last one, I feel like this is the one that you guys see me use most often, even though I haven't used it in a while. But this one is the MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly. So this one is not really marketed as an under eye primer either. It's marketed as a concealer. And then they actually have some relatively new shades that are marketed as eyeshadows, and I really want to try some of those because they've been out for a while, but I haven't tried them yet. But this one is in the shade Painterly, and I think y'all can tell that I've been using this thing up like crazy. This one is pretty much just like the e.l.f. one. Like, I think the e.l.f. would be considered a drugstore dupe to this. It has like that really tacky consistency to it, and just like with the e.l.f. one, it just kind of feels like product would just like really stick to this really nicely. So this one is in the shade Painterly, and I've been using this one for a while now, but now that I have been using that NARS concealer lately, I feel like the next time I buy this, which is going to be a minute before I have to repurchase this, but I feel like the next time I buy this, I am going to try a shade that's just a little bit darker, one that's maybe not quite as ashy. But because I'm just putting eyeshadow on top of it, it's not a big deal that this one is like really light. I like using lighter ones to just help make my eyeshadows pop. So those are my three favorite eyeshadow primers, and now we're going to go into eyeshadow palettes. And again, I do feel like people who are thinking about like premature aging and all of that, I do think it's important to use eyeshadows that have really nice pigment to them. So just like with the complexion products, pick products that have really good pigment so that you can use less of it to still get like a really nice vibrant color. But I think for the most part, these aren't products that I would say are like the best for maturing skin. I just feel like in general, these are like my three favorite eyeshadow palettes. So the first one is the e.l.f. Bite Size Eyeshadows, and y'all have heard me talk about these quite a bit. I may not have mentioned them in a while, but these are some of my favorite eyeshadow palettes ever. These little palettes, they only cost $3, and you get 4 colors in each one. They come in like maybe 10 different color schemes. This one I think is my favorite. This one is the shade Rosewater, and this one is like a really good like everyday color scheme for me. I love like pinks and like rosy colors like this, and since they have like a mix of like light and dark shades, you can do like a nice light everyday look with this, or you can use this dark shade or maybe this this shimmery shade here just to like spruce things up a little bit if you want more of like a glam or like smoky or like nighttime look. But what I really love about all of these palettes is the color payoff is like really amazing. Like, let me swatch a couple for y'all. So that's that's that dark shimmery shade in the palette. And let me just swatch another one just so that y'all can kind of see like a different color. So this one is called Acai You. So I'm gonna swatch one of these blue ones for y'all. Now I will say with this blue one, I find that this one does have a little bit more fallout than the other ones, but generally speaking, like all of these bite-sized palettes, I think I have like 5 or 6 of them. They're very, very pigmented, and they're only like $3. Like, you really can't beat those eyeshadow palettes, especially like for the price. So my next favorite palette, this is the one that's like my most favorite right now because it's relatively new for me. This is the Stone Cold Fox palette from Colourpop. So this one has been out for a while now, but I just kind of recently got it when Colourpop had a 30% off sale. I'm gonna see if I can clean this up a little bit. Good grief. All right, I tried to clean it up a little bit down at the bottom, but I kind of made it worse. But this is what this palette looks like. For people who are into cools or like neutral colors, this one is a really, really good everyday option. To me, this palette looks like it's kind of like monochromatic, but even though it's monochromatic, it's still like a whole lot going on. Like, you can do a whole lot with this. I think Colourpop in general, they have really good, really pigmented eyeshadows. I have a few of their palettes. I don't buy very many because I do think Colourpop kind of comes out with the same thing over and over again. But I will say, out of all of the Colourpop palettes that I have, I do really like them. And this one just happens to be my favorite because of the color scheme. Because again, just like with the Rose Water palette from e.l.f., I just really like roses and like rose golds and like just silvery and like cool tone palettes. So that's why this one is definitely one of my favorites. And then another favorite of mine, it's the one that I'm wearing today, is the Jackie Aina palette, the Anastasia Beverly Hills X Jackie Aina palette. So I like this one because I think it's very versatile. I think you can do a whole lot with this, and these eyeshadows are super pigmented. If you've ever used any ABH palette, they're all very pigmented. The one downside about the ABH palettes for me is that the eyeshadows, they tend to be very powdery, so there's like a whole lot of fallout, a whole lot of kickback with them. But I do feel like the color payoff is worth it, and I really like this palette. It does remind me of a fall tone palette, but there's a whole lot you can do with this. You can do like everyday looks, you can do more glam looks, and it's like a nice mix of some shimmers and some mattes in here. And if you're looking for one that has like excellent color payoff, you should definitely try this one. Okay, moving on to blushes. Oh, I forgot to mention that I'm not doing eyebrows because I really don't have 3 favorites. There's just one product that I always use for my eyebrows, which is the ABH Brow Powder Duo. And really the only reason I'm using this one now is because I got this one from Influencer, so I'm just using it. Like, I really don't have like 3 favorites in that category. I just kind of use whatever I have on hand. So with that being said, we're moving on to blushes, and I am going in the order in which I would apply these products if you haven't noticed that yet. So we're moving on to blushes. So there have been a ton of cream blushes that have come out lately, and I have definitely gained a love for cream blushes because prior to this year, I've always kind of shied away from like creamy and liquidy like cheek products, but there have been a lot of them coming out and I've been liking them more and more. But I will say that I think I still prefer like a good old-fashioned powder blush, but I do have 2 cream blushes that I wanted to share with y'all. And again, just like with eyeshadows, just like with our complexion products, when we're thinking about maturing skin, I like to go for products that have like a lot of payoff with using minimal products. So with that being said, the first blush that I want to share with y'all is one of the Melt Cosmetics cream Blushlights. This one is in the shade Polished. So even though I usually go for more peachy or corally type blushes, I do find myself liking this color better than the shade Sandy Cheeks, which I do really like Sandy Cheeks, but for these blushes in particular, I find myself reaching for Polished more often. These are really pigmented to the point where you do have to be like a little careful when you apply them, but they're so easy to apply. They blend out really easily and they give you like really good payoff for using minimal product. And then the next blush that I want to share with y'all is pretty much the same thing. This is from LYS Beauty. This is a relatively new black owned clean beauty brand at Sephora, and I have their cream. This is a matte cream blush in the shade Inspire. So it has a cream formula but it dries down to a matte finish. Now the same thing with Melt Cosmetics. This one you do have to be careful when you're applying it because it's so pigmented. I think it's even more pigmented than Melt Cosmetics, so you do have to be a little bit careful and you need to go kind of light-handed with this. But because it's so pigmented, that's one of the reasons that I like it, because you can use just a very little bit and get like a nice vibrant blush on your cheeks. Now my favorite blush right now is the one that I cannot stop reaching for. This one is the Pat McGrath, what is it called? Pat McGrath Divine Blush is what it's called. Why does it not say Divine Blush on here anywhere? Anyway, it's called the Divine Blush. This one is in the shade Paradise Venus, and again, I typically go for more like orangey, corally, peachy blushes. I got this one thinking that it was going to be a bit more on the corally side, but it's a little bit more red. This is more of like a terracotta shade. It's a little bit more red than I typically go for, but I have been wearing this blush like crazy because I absolutely love it. This blush is pigmented like the other two that we talked about, but this one I actually think is like really difficult to apply too much of it, if that makes sense, because of the way that it blends out. Like it blends out like so easily in on your skin that like it's like you can keep packing this blush on and it won't look like you've put too much blush on your skin. Like you can just keep packing this on layer after layer and it just like melts right into your skin. That's why I love this so much. I love the way it blends, I love the way it applies, and I just love the way how it just like melts right into your skin. Now bronzers is a little different. So when it comes to blushes, like I said, I think that it's good to go for products that have like maximum like pigment payoff. With bronzers, for me, and this is just my personal taste, I like very subtle bronzers. I like for my bronzer to kind of look almost like barely there on my face. Like I want to have that warmth, but I don't like to put on too much bronzer because I don't want it to like make my face look like too chiseled out, like almost like a contour. So I just like a soft, like subtle bronzer on my face. So the three that I picked, I think that they're not so much ones that I would say are good for maturing skin. They're just like my favorites like overall. So the first one is the Charlotte Tilbury bronzer, and I'll tell you right off the bat, the downside with this bronzer is the shade range. There's only 4 shades I believe, and there's definitely room for like deeper shades, but if you can find a shade in here, this one is one of the best bronzers that I've ever tried. This one is $55, but I think it's definitely worth it, and you can buy the refillable pans for like $39, I think. So really the actual product is only like $39. So this one is one of the few products in my collection that I've actually hit pan on. Can you guys see like that little bit of pan in the middle? That's very rare for me, but that goes to show how much I have used this bronzer. This one has like a really crazy amount of warmth, but you get that amount of warmth with like very little product because it's so pigmented, and just like with the Pat McGrath blush, it just like melts right into your skin. Even though it does give you a lot of warmth, you can just like keep applying this layer after layer and it just won't end up looking like you've over bronzed because it just melts right into your skin. So this one is definitely one of my favorite bronzers ever. Next one, I'm not going to say it's relatively new because I did get this a few months back, but I haven't used it as often as other bronzers. But every time I use this, I'm like, oh, I have to use this more often because it's so pretty. This one is the Tower 28 Bronzino bronzer in the shade Best Coast. So this one is a cream bronzer, and again, I just with the blushes, I will say that I feel like I prefer like a good old-fashioned powder bronzer, but with this one being cream, it's one of the best that I've ever tried, although I don't use it very often. But when I first got this, I was a little kind of apprehensive because it looks like it's going to give you kind of like a goldish tone bronzer, and I prefer like reddish tone bronzers. But when you blend this out, I think that y'all can see like that reddish like copperish tone on my hand. It has like a very nice reddish copper tone to it, and it has like that copper tone just really helps to like add the warmth to your face. This one I'll say is pretty similar to the Charlotte Tilbury one in that you can just keep, you know, applying it and it'll just like blend in really nicely. I don't think that it gives like as much of a warmth as the Charlotte Tilbury one, foundation, but it does still give like a really nice warmth, like a very noticeable bronze to the skin without looking like over bronzed, I'll say. And then I think my favorite bronzer right now is the Glowish by Huda Beauty bronzer. Now, you know how like when you try something new, it becomes your favorite like in the moment just because like it's something new. I think that's what I'm experiencing with this. I'm not gonna go so far as to say it's like my favorite bronzer ever, but it is really, really nice. Like this is another product that I just haven't really been able to put down since I initially tried it. So this one is in the shade Deep Tan 04, and just like with the Tower 28 bronzer, when I first saw this I said, oh, this is going to be like too red, but again, the amount of red, it really helps with the overall warmth that you're getting on your face. And this one, what I love about this one is that it's nice and subtle, especially compared to the other two that I just showed y'all. This one is really subtle, so if you like a more prominent bronzer on your face, you may not care for this one because it is really nice and subtle, and it's just like a barely there bronzer. So that's definitely why this one is one of my favorites. Okay, moving on to setting spray. So I don't use setting spray all year long. I usually just wear them like in the hotter months because I just feel like I don't need them in the colder months. But I don't really try too many setting sprays. Like I feel like when I try ones that I really like, I just tend to stick with those and that's it. But I do have three that I usually rotate through, and like these are like the only three that I've been using since like for as long as I can remember, I guess. So the first one is the Rimmel Stay Matte Fix and Go 2-in-1 setting spray. So you can use this as either a primer and or a setting spray. I usually only use it as a setting spray, and it really does help with keeping your makeup matte during the day, but it doesn't like make your face feel like really tight or anything. One of the things that I do look for in setting sprays is like how they spritz out. If it's like a nice even spritz all over your face, which this one definitely does have that. And then this one is drugstore, so it's quite inexpensive. I want to say this is around $10, and it really does help with like keeping your skin matte and like shine free for a while. So that's why I really like this one. And then this one is relatively new, but again, one of those products that I keep using over and over since I've gotten it because I like it so much. This one is the Benefit Professional Super Setter Spray. Now with this one, I don't think there's anything special about this in terms of like how long it makes how long it keeps your makeup looking matte. Like I feel like it lasts long enough for my liking. What I really love about this is the blurring effect. Like when you spray this all over your face on contact, it really does help your face look nice and blurred. That's why I love this one so much. This is a really good one for like even on days where you're not wearing any makeup. If you finish your skincare routine and then wait for like 30 minutes or so and maybe just spray a little bit of this on. If you have oily skin, this one will actually help to make things look just a little less oily and a little less shiny, because it's going to help like blur things out. This one is really, really good for a blurring effect on your face. And my favorite setting spray ever, this is definitely the one that I use the most. This one is the Fenty Makeup Refreshing Spray. Now, this one is not really marketed as a setting spray. Like from my experience, it doesn't really help to like set things in place. Like these two are matte setting sprays, so they kind of help to keep things in place. This one is more so for like helping to just like blend everything in, to just help soften everything out, especially if you've put a lot of powders on your face. It just helps to kind of like calm everything down, so to speak, and it is very refreshing. So again, with setting sprays, I like to look for one that has like a good spritzer. This one is just so relaxing to spray on your face because of the spritzer. Like I can't explain it, but it's just like it really has like a little spa sensation or something. But this one is just really good to just kind of like give your face like an overall refresh, I'll say. Not just right after you do your makeup, but also like during the day. Okay, y'all, we're getting down to the home stretch. So the next product is eyeliners. And again, this is one of those categories where I wouldn't say that these are products that I've picked out for mature skin. These are just like my favorite eyeliners right now. So I love liquid eyeliners, preferably ones that have like a brush applicator to them. So the first one I want to share with y'all is the Hank & Henry eyeliner. I had never even heard of this until I got it in one of my BoxyCharm boxes, and it's one of my favorite eyeliners ever because of the applicator. It's a very thin brush detail applicator, so it helps with getting the eyeliner really close to the lash line. Because my lids are so folded and I have very minimal lid space, I don't use eyeliner for things like making like a winged eyeliner. I use eyeliner to help make my lash line just look a little more thicker and a little more full. So these types of applicators, they really help me to get like really close to the lash line without accidentally getting eyeliner on my eyeshadow. And this one is really nice and black, doesn't move, doesn't smudge or anything. One of the best that I have ever tried. I also really like the Fenty Beauty eyeliner. It has pretty much the same applicator to it, but this one is more of like a felt tip. Well, actually it is a felt tip, I think. This one is a felt tip, but it's like soft. You know how some felt tip liners can be like really hard and they won't like move and they won't like, there's no flexibility to them. This one is not like that. This one is like really flexible and it's easy again to get it really close to the lash line, and it kind of like moves with your skin, if that makes sense. Now I will say with this one, compared to some other liquid liners that I've used, this one does seem to dry out faster than other ones. So it's not going to be like you're going to use it 3 times and then it's dried out, but I do kind of feel like it should just be lasting a little bit longer than it is. Now maybe it's because I've used this thing like crazy. Like when I first got it, I was using it every single time I did my makeup, but even with that, like I don't wear makeup every single day. I just feel like it shouldn't be drying out as fast as it is, but it's not. Like I still have product in here, I can still use it, but I can tell that it's going to be time to replenish this kind of soon, and compared to the other ones, it just seems like it is drying out a little bit faster, but I do still really like this one. My favorite eyeliner right now is from Rare Beauty, and this one is called the Perfect Strokes Liquid Liner. Now this one might be a little more difficult for some people to use because the applicator is a little thicker. I do wish that it was a thinner applicator than this, but because it's so detailed, it is still easy for me to get it like really close to my lash line. This one is also really comfortable to hold in the hand. Like it really feels like you're writing when you're using this. This one, just like with the other two, it doesn't smudge, it doesn't move around. To my knowledge, this isn't waterproof. I don't think any of these are waterproof, but they're definitely easy to wash off when I'm taking my makeup off. But I feel like I like this the best because of how you hold it in the hand. It's just like really comfortable to hold this one in the hand. So I really like this one. If they made this applicator just a little thinner, it would be perfect, but it's still like my favorite right now. But actually, just with the eyeliners, these next 2 categories, again, I wouldn't consider these like the best for mature skin. There's just like my favorite overall right now. So with mascaras, you guys know that one of my favorites is the Essence Lash Princess mascara. I would say up until maybe like 2 months ago, like every single time I did a video, this was always the mascara that I had on. This one is very inexpensive. It's only $5. This one does a really good job at separating, lifting, and curling all at the same time. This is like the perfect type of applicator for a lot of people because it's not too small, it's not too thick, it's not going to just like completely cover your eye when you're trying to put it on because it's just not so bulky. It's really nice and black, doesn't smudge, doesn't move. This one is not waterproof because I don't wear waterproof mascaras, and this one just really helps to lengthen, lift, curl, elongate everything. Like this is like a really good mascara, one of the best that I've ever used, and I've tried like a million different mascaras. This one is definitely one of my favorites. A next favorite of mine right now is the Pat McGrath Fetish Eyes mascara. So this one is going to be a bit more expensive, but it's really nice and black. This wand is thicker than the other one that we just looked at, but again, at least for my eye size, it's not like super thick, but this one really gives you like a really nice dramatic look on your eyes. I don't think that this one gives you the amount of length as the Essence one, but it really separates and it does give you some length and some volume. So this one is a really good one. I think right now I'm gonna say my favorite mascara though is the Colourpop Act Natural mascara. So I have been using this more and more. The only reason I keep going back to the Essence mascara is because I have a habit habit of having like 5 different mascaras open at the same time, and I really don't like to do that because mascaras do tend to dry out faster than other products. So I try to like use up a mascara in full before I go to another one, but it's hard for me to do that because I try a lot of them out. This one, when I first bought it, I put it aside because I was going to use it in like a full face of new makeup video, and I actually forgot that I had this until recently. So I just tried this for the first time like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I really like it. I do kind of feel like I like this one better than the Essence mascara. This one, the formula of it is just really, really nice and creamy. Like, I wish that y'all can feel, I can't really explain this, but like just taking the wand out is somewhat satisfying because it gives you an idea of the formula of this mascara. Like, I can't explain it like on camera, but I just wish that y'all could experience this. But this formula is just like really, it's almost like a whipped formula is what I'm trying to say. And again, just like with the Pat McGrath mascara, this wand is a little thicker compared to the Essence mascara, but this one, I don't know, I think it does a better job of giving you like fuller looking lashes while still giving you length and volume compared to the Essence one. Like, this, don't get me wrong, this one is still one of my favorites ever, but I do feel like I'm liking this Colourpop one a little bit better. So, and then quickly let's go through some lip liners, because I feel like with lip liners, I mean, to me a lip liner is just a lip liner. So the first one is the NYX Slim Pencil, is that what it's called? This one is in the shade brown, so it's just like a standard brown lip liner. Nothing special about them, you know, it's just a standard lip liner, and I went with NYX because it's NYX, so it's cheap. So this one is kind of like half the size of when you first buy it, but I think these cost like $5, so that's why I tried those, because they're nice and cheap. And then next one we have the LA Girl Ultimate Intense Stay Auto Liner. So the only thing that I like about this better than the NYX one really is that you don't have to sharpen it. I do like things that you don't have to sharpen, but ones that you don't have to sharpen tend to not last as long as the ones that you do sharpen. But I mean, again, really nothing, you know, special about this one. It's just a typical lip liner that I like, and it's inexpensive just like the NYX one. Now I will say with this next one, which is my favorite right now, this is the Lawless Beauty Forget the Filler Definer Liner. When I tried this, it did make me want to go get more of these in other shades, even though they're more expensive. This one is like $20 or $22. This one does feel really creamy. I will say I feel like this one is more creamy than the NYX Slim Lip Pencil, but again, like, I never went back and bought more because I'm like, it's $20 and it's just a lip liner, like, what's the big deal? But this one does feel a bit more creamy to me than the other two that I just mentioned. So right now these are my 3 favorite lip liners, and then finishing off with lips. So I am gonna gear these products toward mature skin, but I feel like for the most part, I mean, you can pretty much wear what you want on your lips. It's just that with people who have mature skin, I like to go for like more hydrating products, even with the ones that we're putting on the lips. But I think that might be something that everybody looks for, like more hydrating products. So you can definitely wear matte lip products if you want to, but I have chosen 3 lip glosses because I'm very much into glosses right now, and glosses are just going to be a lot more hydrating than like a, let's say, like a matte liquid lipstick. So these are the 3 lip products that I have just been wearing the most lately, and I think that they're really good options for people who have maturing skin, or let's say people who have like dry lips. So the first one is the NYX Butter Gloss. This one is in the shade Praline, and I feel like this is probably my favorite out of the entire shade range. This comes in like 35 shades, I think. This one is just like a really nice everyday lip gloss for me. So that's the shade Praline. These lip glosses, they're called butter glosses, and they actually feel like butter on your lips. They're very soft, very whipped. They feel really nice and hydrating. They're not sticky at all. The color, the ones that have like color to them, they do last for quite a long time until you have to like like refresh it and add like another coat. They just feel like just so soft and buttery on the lips. So that's why I like those. And then my next one is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss. I would say some of these, the shades, they are dupes for some of the Fenty Gloss Bomb creams. And then the formula of them, they're very similar to the NYX Butter Glosses in that they're really just creamy and buttery on the lips. This one is in the shade Silk, and this is the one that I wear most because it's like a nice everyday shade. To me, this one is kind of like a dupe for one of the Fenty one in Cupcake, and I think it is. And then my favorite lip product right now, it's the one that I'm wearing today. I forgot to tell y'all that I'm also wearing the lip liner from Lawless Beauty, but I'm also wearing the Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb Heat. So again, I just think glosses are just a better option for people who have like drier skin or drier lips. And this one, it is meant to be a plumping lip gloss, but I feel like it doesn't really feel like that. Like you can feel just like a little bit of a tingling sensation, but to me the level of tingle is like very comfortable. Nothing off-putting, nothing just too tingly and just like your lips are on fire. It's like very nice and comfortable, almost like a warming sensation to it. Right now this only comes in one shade. This is the shade Hot Cherry, but I have a feeling that they're definitely going to extend the shade range with this because this was a big hit, and I think that this is like really nice and shiny, really glossy on the lips. I feel like it might give like a little bit of plumping effect, but I can't really tell on my lips because I just don't think that my lips need to be plumped. But this one is just very hydrating, very comfortable to wear like all of the other Fenty glosses. So you guys, I know that there was a whole lot of stuff we went over today, but those are all of my top 3 products in every category in my makeup routine. Let me know what you think about any of the products that I talked about today, and please let me know in the comments what some of your favorites are. I really hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe before you head out, and I will see y'all back here for my next one. Until then, take care. Have a good one, y'all. Bye.